I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips, and this is your weekly fishing report. Down here in Mesquite Bay along this area here, it's called the Runway. Been extra water in here over the last few days because the storm surge has pushed in here, and there's been a lot of fish that's been pushed up close to the shoreline. A lot of your bait's been pushed up in here. Don't be fooled completely by that. Look for the back lake entrances as well, these mouths that are around this area. What has happened is that normally your fish would typically be pushed up against the shoreline because it's gotten a little bit deeper up there, so you would think that that's where fish should be, but they kind of have backed off a little bit and they're a little bit deeper. They're hanging in a little bit deeper water, which surprised me. So you want to look when you're out here fishing this area is find your bait. If you've got bait working up shallow, throw into that area and work it, but don't be afraid or don't shy away from your little bit deeper water in your 3 to 4 foot water. It might be a little bit difficult to weight it, but you can throw to it. You can probably stand in that 2.5 foot of water and throw out there to a little bit deeper water, and you'll be pleasantly surprised that there's some good fish that are hanging out there and still in a little bit deeper water. It's almost still like your summertime pattern when it gets warmer. Again, your down south lures have been working well in this particular situation. Downsize a little bit down to a burner shad. Even your marker 54 jerk shrimps have worked pretty well looking in this area for your trout. Rattlesnake Island, off this little cut that comes right through here off the intercoastal, all the way down the back side of this island here. You got a little bit deeper grass that's working out there. Again, you've got a little bit more water that is pushed in here, which probably is going to reside here before too long, so you'll be back to somewhat normal tides here. So throw your down south lures. There's some good specks that are working in here. There's scattered redfish that are coming up out of that intercoastal, and they're cruising around this island looking for something to eat up here on this flat, looking for bait fish working along that edge. Throw your topwater up there close to the shoreline. If you have trouble hanging up in the grass that's there, that way it'll keep you out of it, or rig it up weedless. You can also throw you a popping cork with a jerk shrimp underneath it, or a burner shad up underneath it. It has, it's done pretty good. It's not just a great result, but you can catch a few fish with it from time to time if you want to just try something a little bit different. But the best thing that's been working is your down south lures, the darker versions, supermodels and regular models in this area. All the way down here past Panther Point towards Cedar Lake. There's a bunch of little nooks and crannies and back lake mouths that drop off out here into San Antonio Bay as you get into Cedar Lake. All this area back in here. Get up against these mangroves, work the shoreline, all back in here. There's some good amount of bait that's back in this area. There's some nice redfish that are holding in. There's the redfish are they're in the lower slot. They're in that 21 to 23 inch range, but still it's a good box redfish if that's exactly what you're wanting to find. The Double D has worked real good back in here. If you've never tried a lele lure, it is a really good topwater lure that you can throw. It's a little bit smaller version than what the Spook Junior is. So if you really want an erratic topwater, throw that lele in here. The redfish are reacting to it really well. Again, your plum down south, magic grass down south has worked well back in this area here. Again, there's some good quality redfish that are working in this area, and there's a few scattered trout, a bunch of little ones still, but you can work through those and you can find some decent box trout in this area as well. Paul's Mott, Long Reef Bend area, all down through here. There's a bunch of these back lakes that's dumping out in this big flat. Right up here behind all these duck blinds here. Work your way out from the shore toward the bay system out here. Use your wind at your advantage. Working your down south through this area here. Scattered all throughout this area. There's some nice trout that are scattered out in here. If you're looking specifically for redfish, get up against that shoreline closer to those mouths that open up back there. Fish around those mouths. Fish the drop edges around those mouths. There's some good fish that are hanging in that area as well. You just have to be patient with it and work it up and down here. Just continue to work down. If you're not being covered about by other people showing up, then just keep working it and keep working it. Scatter yourself out over this flat. Your down south lures are working well in here, both a supermodel and regular model. And depending on what your pressure is, barometric pressure, throw a smaller bait. If you got a little bit higher pressure in here, like the burner shad has worked good. Again, the shrimp, the jerk shrimp by marker 54 have done well. The mullet run have done well in here. Suspended baits like your mirrodines are starting to produce a little bit, and as our temperatures start to drop a little bit more in our waters, that'll begin to produce even more so for you. So you may want to use it for a little bit of practice time to get your rhythm back in for throwing that bait. But all this area here is producing some nice trout and some nice redfish. Over here in Carlos Bay, off this point, all the way down in the little corner down in here, worked this edge really well. There's been some quality trout hanging off in this area. You're throwing your darker down south, working that deeper water. Again, don't be shy away from the deeper water right now. Their fish are holding out there in that 3 to 4 foot, maybe even 5 foot if you can get to it and work it. There's some nice fish that are hanging out there in that deeper water. Then get up here and work this shoreline. You'll find some nice redfish, scattered black drum in here ever so often. Throw your mirror lure little johns for that. They'll eat that little john. They like the little johns. And then there's some nice redfish, flounder that are in this area as well. Picked up a few flounder that are scattered through this area here. But continue to work all down through this grass line, looking for your trout, throwing your darker down south, throwing your jerk shrimps, your mullet run. Occasional topwater. The topwater in this area hadn't produced as much double D's. Get up there in that thigh to waist deep water and work your double D up against that shoreline there. Find the bait working. You'll find some nice fish up and down this shoreline here in Carlos. Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Larry Bell.